And now on Nights with Steve Price, the Courses and Careers Show with Danny Bielik. Thanks to Management Consultancy International. Go to mci.edu.au.
Hello, Danny.
How are you, Luke?
I'm travelling well. Nice to see you, mate.
Good to see you too.
So we've got lots of things to talk about tonight, including what we should be unlearning. We'll get there in just a while, but the Prime Minister had a bit to say today. I don't know what your take out of it was, whether or not you think he's on the right track here or not. It's certainly the former Treasurer Costello had a bit to say about where we might be in a month budget-wise, but what did you make of what he had to say?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the Prime Minister is saying a few things. It's a lot of housekeeping statements, and it's a lot of motherhood statements. So not very much detail, of course, because we've got the budget coming up in a month. And this was really a speech pre-budget, and what he's trying to do is set the tone a little bit about what the budget is about. This has been a recurring problem for this government. If we take the education reforms that they were trying to put through, the higher education reforms, where they were trying to allow more students to go to university and have more diversity in universities, they weren't talking to the population. He's trying to do that now, and he's trying to do it about jobs.
Okay, so I want to go back to the Pine reforms.
Yep.
Essentially, what was the change going to be? Because the very easy one line that the opposition was throwing out there was, oh, these guys are all about creating $100,000 degrees. What should Pine have... What? And that's wrong?
It's an easy line.
It's an easy line, but it's also for take-home politics, for retail politics. It's a beauty. What should Pine have been saying?
What he needs to be saying is that our economy is changing, and Luke, we don't know what it's going to look like in a year's time, 5 years' time, or 10 years' time. We didn't know. If you asked 20 years ago, is manufacturing just going to wholesale exit Australia, you'd say I was completely crazy. Well, guess what? It's gone.
Yeah.
If you said that, we were going to see services. We were talking 10 years ago about Australia being all about services. Well, we're seeing services being exported. The rise of the internet has basically meant that services can be exported and can be delivered from around the world. So you don't know in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and 20 years' time what the economy is going to look like. And the only thing that will allow our economy to adjust on a regular basis is if more people have access to more learning. Under our current system, we have 39 or 40 government-owned universities, so the government crowds the market out, and the prices are fixed. If you study at the University of Sydney, the University of New South Wales, or the University of California, it costs exactly the same amount of money, and the university receives the same amount of money. There's no opportunity for them to diversify. Equally, there is no opportunity for any other organisation, a Yale or a Harvard University, to come to Australia and set up shop. Why? Because they can't get access to the funding right now. They can't set a price right now. That means that these guys, these universities, who would desperately love to set up in a rich country like Australia, they would absolutely love to offer their services to Australian students. They are setting up in Singapore. They're setting up in Taiwan, they're setting up in Korea, they're setting up everywhere except Australia. And this was a one-time opportunity to be able to fix this because the government could not make a case for it with the population, with the Senate, with the opposition. It didn't pass, and it's a shame.
And the Senate's almost impossible because you've got two or three who will always say no anyway because they hate what the coalition stands for. But this idea of a $100,000 degree comes from what? The fact that there would be no capping on the price of courses.
Correct.
Because if we want to get Harvard to come over here or Yale or whoever, we've got to be able to say to them, free market, do your best.
Absolutely.
Right.
Shouldn't we?
Of course we should. I got no drama with that at all.
Absolutely.
And what about the other thing with HECS? Weren't we then saying to students, look, it's now going to be 50-50?
Yeah.
What is
so
it
at the moment, it's around about 60-40 at the moment. The government pays. So what people don't understand is when you go to university at the moment and you study for a year and it loads you up with about $6,000 in debt, what actually is happening is that the government is paying the rest. It is a higher education contribution.
Hang on, the government's not paying. Hard-working people are paying.
You better believe it. You better believe it. And you've got to remember, Luke, that that when you do a tertiary qualification, the the individual who does the learning is the one who stands the most to gain. Society gains some, we call that public benefit, but the individual gains the most, we call that private benefit. And they gain through increased employability, but usually more money. Somebody with a university degree, somebody with a higher education qualification, on average earns $1 million more in their lifetime than somebody who doesn't have one.
It's unbelievable. If you're a taxpayer, like we are all in this small room, and many of you will be, or even if you're not a taxpayer, surely the idea that we get competition between universities and we encourage students, rather than to pay 60-40 with us, the taxpayer, paying the 60, but we go a 50-50 share. What is the problem with that? Gosh.
So we talked about, I mean, the narrative. Mate,
that's outrageous.
The government didn't own the narrative, and that was the problem. The government let all the loonies loose with a $100,000 degree thing, and you know what? There probably would be a couple. But the reality is, what it also allowed universities to do, Luke, is the starving universities in the bush, the starving universities in North Queensland, the starving universities in the other states would be able to drop their prices, which they are today completely unable to do.
Unbelievable stuff. So and Steve will take your call in a sec, but this idea today where we had the Prime Minister talking about new jobs, and I think so far saying that in 2014 there was nearly 4,000 new jobs created every week, but the fact the budget is going to be aiming at jobs, is that something that a budget can in fact generate, that the economic settings of government can have a marked effect on like that?
Yeah, look, it absolutely can. Because if you think about that, if you say a tax on businesses and a tax on individuals is a job killer, then removing taxes or reducing taxes should also stimulate job creation. Now, the problem in our economy is that we are in a declining job market at the moment, so at best you would probably stave it off. You might reduce the time to recovery in the jobs market, and you might encourage small businesses to start employing people. Around about half of small businesses, Luke, employ absolutely nobody. It's a single proprietor.
Is that right?
Yep.
Jeez.
And one of the things that the government wants to do is that they want to have independent contractors and sole traders, encourage them to take on their first employee. At the moment, it's so punitive.
Yeah.
It's so unbelievably punitive. You can't hire someone less than 3 hours. You can't do this. You can't do that. You know, you want to be able to... I had my first job at 14. Now, people would look at you sideways if you said, I'm going to hire a 14-year-old.
Good stuff. 131873. G'day, Steve.
Oh, good evening, guys. Look, I had my first job at 14 and 9 months, and that was with Coles Supermarkets before they became terrible. But
Coles New World.
Yeah. Look, a couple of things. I did a degree at Newcastle Uni, and yes, I went on the HEX scheme. I actually was the first year that HEX was introduced. So previous, my brother and sister actually went through university free.
Right. Not free. Government subsidised, taxpayer paid.
Okay, fine. And since then, yes, I do earn sort of decent money.
Good.
And I do pay a lot of tax.
Yep.
What I'm trying to work out for my two children, one's 10, I've got two girls, one's 10, one's 7. And look, if they want to go to university, I hope they do. If they want to, I look at a couple of my mates, and they went into the trades, and they're earning a hell of a lot more money than I'll ever will. But what I'm trying to work out for my two girls is, like, should I try and... I know you can't push children into a certain area, but should I look at sort of if they want to be teachers or nurses, or is that the growing area?
You know, gee, 10 and 7, I think you're pushing yourself a bit hard, Steve. Obviously, you know, you're a very successful man. You've gone to university. What did you study at uni, by the way?
I did a commerce degree.
Fantastic.
But back in those days, and it's funny because you could either do commerce or economics. That was it.
Yeah.
That were your two options.
Yeah.
And now the range of degrees are so they're beautiful now. I mean, I'm actually a marketing manager, actually.
Good on you.
But we didn't have that. We didn't sort of really have that. You couldn't say, "Oh, I'm interested in advertising, whatever else." But
so you've learned how to learn, and that's really important. And you've learned the benefit of a tertiary education. You're wanting to pass that on to your girls. I think
Absolutely.
trying to, the best thing that you can do as a parent is to set a really good example, and I think you're doing that. Give your girls a little bit of credit and give them a bit of breathing space. I mean, they've got a few years up their sleeve yet.
I know, but
and don't forget, what you're trying to do is what every other bugger out there is trying to do, including the government, and they're trying to predict what the Australian economy is going to look like in 8 or 10 or 15 or 20 years' time. Don't try and do it. Don't try and do it. We don't know what it's going to look like. I think a lot of university degrees out there right now, and this is my personal opinion, Steve, is that they are inherently vocational. So they teach you to do a thing. They teach you to draw, or they teach you to be an accountant, or they teach you to be a dentist. But what they don't often teach you to do these days is think. They don't teach you about the concepts of learning. You probably would have learned more about that at the University of Newcastle. They're not teaching like that now, and that sort of teaching, the learning how to learn, the learning how to adapt, is actually going to be the secret to your kids' success. It's not necessarily going to be what they learn, but how they learn.
All right, Steve, we'll leave it there. Thanks for the call. 131873. G'day, Fred.
Hi, how you going?
We're both well, mate.
Listen, I've been a tradie. I'm 42. I've been a tradie for 26 years. Tyler, I've got about 10 guys working for me. I think it comes back to one thing. It's called work ethic. You work hard, especially in a trade. You get rewarded much quicker than you do in the professional, like lawyers and all that.
Yep.
And we make our money early. You know what I'm saying? Mm. But we work hard and we get rewarded handsomely for it.
Yep. You're 100% right. You are absolutely 100% right, Fred. But the issue that you've got as a tiler, as a tradie, and we've seen a buoyant tradie market really because there's been such a massive underinvestment in infrastructure. So a lot of that's coming online now, and people have been pouring money into houses. People have been pouring money into renovations.
You know how good the economy is going by how many cranes you see up in the sky.
Yeah, that's definitely one measure. That's definitely one measure. I look at the number of people queuing up for coffees in the morning in the city, because the first thing to go when things are looking a bit rough, first thing to go is the early morning coffee.
Is that right?
No. Well, a couple of years ago, people used to frown on tradies. Now I think we're doing very, very well.
Who frowns on tradies?
Yeah, only the wrong people. Thank you, Fred. We'll leave it there. Mike, g'day.
Hi, how you going, mate?
Travelling well?
Good. Just want to add on a bit from that tradie that last spoke, mate. I believe you don't really need a higher education to earn some good money. I'm actually on quite good money, and I'm not even a tradie.
No, you don't. You're absolutely right. But the statistics don't lie. On average, somebody who has a higher education qualification earns $1 million more in their lifetime than somebody who doesn't. Tradies, I think, in Australia are an obvious exception, and a lot of that, like I said, is off the back of the housing boom. And off the back of the blockage that we've had, the constipation in infrastructure that we've had that's now come loose.
And that's also one thing that won't stop too. Building will keep growing.
Mate, and the other thing is, however many people there are behind computers, we'll always need our toilets unblocked.
Good point. Thank you, Mike, for the call. Thank you so much. 131873 is the number, 2gb.com. An email from Mark who says, "G'day, Luke. I totally disagree with your comments about the cancellation of Melbourne's East-West link. The Labor Party announced a long time before the election they did not support the project." Well, you see, I don't believe that, Mark, because I can quote that on April 27, 2014, while tearing up the breaking, this is the now Treasurer Tim Pallas, while tearing up the contract would break no law, it would risk damaging Victoria's strong credit rating and add to the cost of borrowing. This on September 11, 2014, in a letter from Daniel Andrews and Tim Pallas to the Premier Dennis Napthine at the time. This is September 2014. Labor has always said we will honour valid legal binding contracts on any project, and we remain committed to this position. Mark, see, I don't take your point, but the whole idea, mate, that you would spend practically $1 billion not to build a road qualifies, as I said earlier, for Daniel Andrews, Premier of Victoria, to be anointed tonight as Australia's greatest dope. And that's what he is.